because it's those students that you want in your groups, and with the support of a majority of students, you can form stronger bonds within the community. So I think it's just really important to tell people in the community, like, this is where we are, come and talk to us about sustainability.
The issue of the compost grinder is a very thorny and complicated one. If elected as internal relations officer, it would be my responsibility to liaise with the managerial staff and the staff at large and the food services. The most important thing to understand as far as food scraps is concerned is whether or not we can actually get it off the hill without creating a significant carbon impact. The issue of transportation, getting stuff off the hill, if we're going to be manufacturing compost, there's a significant amount of food scrap that will be generated here. Now, I compost at home all the time, and there's a lot of it. If we're going to be selling this compost or be donating this compost to community gardens or to other community organizations, then we're going to have to getting that compost off of the hill somehow. This is an issue that cannot be ignored. If we start sending a truck down the hill and then back up again to pick up compost every week, how much of an impact are we really going to be making towards sustainability? And so I think that if there is going to be compost, and if there is a grinder, I believe that it should be a limited pilot project, and that compost should be used by facilities management up here, using natural fertilizer as far as the continued maintenance and beautification of various gardens and green spaces, which we have here at SFU. As far as liaising, communicating with other groups who are interested in environmental and sustainable initiatives, I believe that an open door policy is the most important thing to have. I will talk to anybody. If somebody has a good idea that is economically feasible while at the same time moving SFU towards it being a sustainable university, a truly sustainable university, and I believe that that idea is actually viable, then I will, by all means, work with the University Relations Officer, the President, and all other members of the board in a cooperative and collegial spirit to ensure that those initiatives are put through.
I think a good target audience for this composting program would be the residents up here, because they do a lot of cooking. I mean, I know when I lived on residence, I would painfully throw away scraps of carrots because we didn't have a composting program, and it's kind of, I talked to the director of residence and housing, and it's kind of difficult because this is a natural wildlife area, and there are animals that will get into the trash, and that's why we have the garbage compactor in residence. But I think what would be really important would be to create kind of a working group to generate new ideas on how composting can be feasible on campus, especially geared towards residents, because they are the ones that cook up here and have scraps of various foods up here. Also, the SFSS food and beverage services do produce a lot of waste, and I think it would be beneficial to work with the internal relations officer and figure out a way that we could feasibly make composting happen on campus.
In my role as the CEO of GE Free Solutions, which is a sustainable company that works with restaurants, we work with a lot of restaurants that compost, and so I've been able to see firsthand how this is actually possible to do on a large scale. I mean, we think about how much compost we personally create. Anyone here, I'm sure that most people here compost, and we think that's a lot. But when everybody is going into a restaurant and eating and then leaving, it produces way, way, way more compost. So I think that the issue of transportation is essentially a non-issue, because you're going to have to truck it off the mountain whether you compost it first or not. And we can also use the waste, other waste produced on campus, in order to transport that. So, for example, the company car runs on recycled vegetable oil. We produce a lot of vegetable oil on campus, and that can be used to transport our compost in a carbon neutral way if we can't use it all on campus. So I think that the issue of composting is something that we need to be doing here. There's a lot of best practice that's already done in Vancouver. We can learn from people who are doing this successfully already, and I think it's something that we should definitely go for. Not just in our food services, I think that's the most important part, but also we have recycling, we have garbage for students to get rid of their waste. Why not have composting as well? There are a lot of examples of places that have done that successfully, and I think that's something that we can do here on campus.
So I know that SF has a compost right in front of the door, but maybe not many students know that as well. So I would like to see more compost bins around campus, like UVic has them everywhere. And they actually have a list of what products can go in them. For example, some people might not know that eggshells can go in compost, or coffee mugs, because it's paper-based. Filters. Anything. You know, we should make a list and have it available for students so they are aware of what they can and cannot compost. In terms of trucking them off campus, I think if we have these gardens, we can put the compost as fertilizer in those gardens and make that a collaborative initiative. So the more awareness that students have about these issues, I think, is more valuable than just a group of people, just one. So I think if we all talk to students and get them interested and make them knowledgeable of what can be composted, I think that's more effective.
Yeah, I was going to say what Alicia said about working with UVic and seeing how their composting program works. And I'm sure that they have had some of the same barriers that SFU students have had, and asking how they've managed to overcome those and how they've moved past those barriers. I think the year before I became at-large, so that must have been 3 years ago, there was a bit of a composting program that was kind of small and was just basically one director having to go and take the compost out to the garden plot. And then once that director was gone, it stopped. So I also want, I think that if we can work with especially interested students, you were mentioning that this is there's also a group of students who are particularly interested in this project. Empowering these students, working with students who have maybe a lot more information